Ironically, this was like the first week you guys had launched. Somehow by fate, I just happened to find the platform and I liked the format. I liked the fact that you could actually choose the narration. I had come across the Notebook KL and Notebook LM, I think it's called. Was not really that impressed with the platform. Did not think that it really accomplished what it was I was envisioning. I think one of the great benefits of the platform is that just like any other AI product, what you get out of it is what you put into it. So if you put junk into it, you're going to get junk out of it. In our case, we had some excellent content. I had done some very extensive research on a number of subjects and was able to fairly easily put together a fast series of podcasts based on all the research I'd done previously.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for being here. I want to jump right in. What was the most unexpected surprise or moment that won you over about Jellypod?
Well, let me give you a little backstory. I am very new to podcasting, and a resident came in. I work for a city government in the metro Atlanta area. And I had a resident come in, was talking about a podcast they had just done, their first one. It was done through a program called Notebook KL. And I was like, well, if they can do it, I can check it out. So I've been doing some research on some projects here in the city and decided to throw my research into Notebook. And I said, well, it's not exactly what I wanted. It's basically two people talking back and forth about a topic. And I wanted more control over the narration, the content, and went and did a Google search on podcast platforms that allow you to search for certain narrations. And ironically, this was like the first week you guys had launched. Somehow by fate, I just happened to find the platform and I liked the format. I liked the fact that you could actually choose the narration. Like I said, I'm very new to it, so it took a bit of a learning curve. But after my first podcast, which is more like a video cast that I did in post-production, I thought it had a lot of potential for some additional stories. When I ran it by my boss, he said, well, this isn't really a podcast. Podcast is something you listen to, not something you watch. And so that actually helped me to simplify it into more of a static background with more of a narration conversation on top. Some of the first challenges were some of the initial limitations in the platform with respect to editing. I think you and I had a couple of conversations about how to go back and open files back up after you've already published them, but also using the 11 Labs voices and being able to integrate those back into your platform, I thought was a real bonus. But I would say the more challenging thing was in the early days, if you had to go back and make a correction, you had to basically redo the entire script. Since then, we've been able to parse that down to smaller segments. So I burned off a lot of credits early on because I had to re-script some things. But I really enjoyed the fact that you can actually go in and edit the script itself before it's actually published. What I still find a bit challenging is being able to introduce emphasis or pauses or certain sort of inflections. And hopefully that'll be something that is coming down the pipeline. Especially when you want to make dramatic pauses, it's hard for the AI to know you want to do things, even though if you put, 7 or 8 dots, it still is not consistent with the pausing. But overall, I think it's been a great platform. I produced 14 podcasts within 6 weeks. I already had the content lined up. I used a series of integrated AI systems, one, of course, being OpenAI ChatGPT. I also used another platform. I think I used 3 in total before I'd actually put it into the Jellypod app. But the outcome has been, or the product's been very well received by the audience. It's not something that I have ever intended on publishing on YouTube or any other social media channel, We actually just house the content on the city's website and link to it in our monthly newsletter. So if we have a topic of interest that comes up, whether it's something historical, whether it's something about arts and culture, whether it's something about geography or geology or recreation, I mean, there's all sorts of different topics that we're trying to discover the appropriate medium in which to translate this message out. It's part of our larger economic development, economic placemaking, marketing, and tourism strategy. Another reason I have yet to publish it more formally is that I really want to integrate more videography in with the narration, because I think it makes it more immersive. It's a great product. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the evolution as we move forward.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that. I mean, it sounds like, from my perspective, the surprise, or the sort of this journey, it started off with customization and how great that was, and you've been able to refine it down to the podcast that you really love, and now the next big thing that you're pushing us towards is video, which is certainly top of mind. It is something, and expressiveness are the two biggest things.
Yes.
And those are definitely coming down the pipe. Expressiveness will come sooner than video. To give you a sort of a sense, we are constantly following all the best video models to start incorporating them. But for now, we still see that they're inconsistent, and sometimes they're a bit jarring, and they're expensive. So it's hard to pay a lot for something that's jarring. But thank you so much.
I think there was a friend of mine gave me a link to a platform that he was using for video post-production. It's a free one. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but the one that I use is Cyberlink Power Director, where I can take the audio that I produce from a podcast, then put it into a video editor and just silence out the visual, and then I can add my own visual content on it. There are ways around it, definitely.
So you mean like video as in like graphic, like B-roll, like imagery and things like that, not like two podcast hosts talking about the content?
Exactly.
Okay. That's sooner than later for sure.
Yeah, while we're talking, I'm going to pull up that email. I'll tell you what the platform is, because it's actually a free one. But go ahead and
we'll absolutely work on the editing components. But we said a lot for what was your unexpected surprise. But now I'd like to rewind, right? Because we've said a lot. Would love to know a bit about yourself. So you mentioned that you work for the city, Atlanta, and I'm just curious. Tell me a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Chris Montesinos. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city of Chattahoochee Hills. We are a suburb of the city of Atlanta, about 25 miles, well, actually about 25 minutes southwest of the Atlanta International Airport. We are an extremely unique location because we are in a very highly urbanized environment, but our city has chosen to remain very deliberately rural. And so we have a very unique 70% green space set aside requirement in all development, which helps us to maintain a much more bucolic green space, forested environment in a larger urbanized metropolitan area. So we're something that's very unique. So looking at how we can message our media and our development style to a larger audience. I mean, we are a city which is the second largest in the county. The county has 1 million people in it. We're in a metropolitan area that has 6.5 million people in it within a 90-minute drive. And we are a city that only has 3,500 people in it. We're very pastoral, very agricultural, lots of parks and green space. We're very big on recreation, wellness, and we are also, interestingly, the second most expensive real estate market in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
It's an interesting dynamic out here for sure.
Very cool. So, I mean, it sounds like highest level, what you're trying to accomplish before Jellypod is an increase in tourism. You're trying to show people the magic of your town to everyone in Georgia, and maybe broader, maybe, in the whole US.
Yeah, I think Jellypod and that type of platform allows us the ability to sort of tell stories. It's definitely a verbal medium, as opposed to a print or digital or video and photography. But it's just a different way to be able to tell a story about a topic with a longer, more detailed narration. When I can do it in a voice that's not this one here, then I can make it sound a lot more appropriate depending on the topic of the conversation. So if it's something about arts and culture, I may use something that's a little more sophisticated, linguistic. If I'm doing something that's more historical, it might be something a little more Southern or country sounding. So I have the choice to decide what my narration is based on the topic and who I believe the audience would be most receptive to.
Very cool. I think that's the first time I'm hearing of this dynamic changing in hosts based on the story that you're trying to tell. I mean, that's super cool. That is awesome. So prior, I guess, to Jellypod, why was this audio storytelling? Why was that so important? Or were you not thinking about it at all before Jellypod?
Like I mentioned, I had come across the Notebook KL and actually Notebook LM, I think it's called, was not really that impressed with the platform, did not think that it really accomplished what it was I was envisioning. I was not really, this was really not on my radar until it came across my desk that somebody nearby had done something similar. And we were looking for different ways as we've developed our marketing and tourism strategy, trying to figure out how we were going to message our story and looking at different ways, whether that's, like I said, through print media or through social media or through audio media or photography or videography, et cetera. All that stuff is certainly still on the table, but I think a combination of all the above is certainly appropriate based on whatever platform we're going to orient that towards.
Totally. I mean, it sounds, and just based on the uniqueness of your area and where it sits in the broader Georgia landscape. I mean, it sounds like all the different, you have the room and the need to try all these different strategies and reach people how they want to be reached. Very cool. What options, down to NotebookLM was the first thing you heard. Were there other options that you considered between Jellypod and others?
No, actually, like I said, it was sort of fate that I Googled basically a podcast platform that I could choose my narration, and you guys popped up, and I was like, well, let me try it out. This was literally the first week that I'd actually even attempted any sort of platform like this. And you think about the advancement of AI within the last 8 months. I mean, it's just exploded. It's amazing. But no, we are very new to economic development. In fact, I'm the first director and I've been here for about 16 months. So we had no economic development strategy. We had no strategy for trade and tourism. We had just launched a Convention and Visitors Bureau, which entailed contracts for multimedia development, more so for photography and videography, so that we could have a multimedia library, which then complemented the creation of a website for the Convention Visitors Bureau, which we're currently in the process of doing. We did a project with the state that we started that I've been working on for about a year, which entailed developing community asset maps. So what is it about your locality that makes it special? And by doing that, I was able to come up with a variety of sort of subject matter. And the subject matter needed some way to be articulated or messaged. And so I found it very helpful in using the Jellypod platform to, for example, this part of Atlanta was very historically important in the American Civil War when there was the battle for Atlanta. And so going back and doing the research, but then being able to flush it through GPT or Grok or another platform, and then bring it into Jellypod to create an actual script out of it, and then to go ahead and basically tell a story. And it was really a great platform to then take what we had, which was a static storyboard, and actually turn it into something that was a little more immersive and a little more inclusive. for different audiences.
Very cool. What did success look like when you were evaluating the product? Was there a certain kind of outcome or a result that you were hoping to see out of Jellypod?
I think one of the great benefits of the platform is that just like any other AI product, what you get out of it is what you put into it. So if you put junk into it, you're going to get junk out of it. In our case, we had some excellent content. I had done some very extensive research on a number of subjects and was able to fairly easily put together a fast series of podcasts based on all the research I'd done previously. I've gotten excellent reviews. I never actually thought that anyone actually listened to them because of the limited amount of bandwidth we had put them out in the public sphere. But actually, when we did some interviews recently with a firm we selected for multimedia, for the website design, one of the gals said, "Yeah, I've actually listened to about 5 or 6 of your shows." And I was like, "Whoa, that's great." And of course, we post them on the city website so they're available just if people are interested in knowing something a little more detailed, either about an area that they want to visit or an area that they already live in. So I think it's been a great resource, and I look forward to being able to expand the utilization of it. I think it's a great storytelling resource, definitely.
Amazing. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that's what our higher mission is: AI storytelling, helping people unlock the amazing stories within people and making it really easy to get it out into the world. Out of curiosity, what's your, you've made a lot of episodes and it sounds like you live in a magical place. What's your favorite episode been about?
I don't have a single one. I have probably a handful that I like better. I think the first one, which was just the larger community overview, because we've got parts of the city that are sort of what we call agri-urbanism, which are like new urbanist planned communities that have a lot of density to them, but also have a lot of green space to them. And the people that live there, these are very expensive, exclusive areas, didn't really know much of outside of their community. And the folks that are outside the community didn't really know a whole lot of the people that were inside the community. So it was two different stories that we needed to articulate. So it was really about, how do I communicate this message to a larger metropolitan Atlanta market and say, hey, you may know about Serenbe development, but do you also know about, the Chattahoochee River corridor, or the recreation that we offer, and the parks and trails and horseback riding and mountain biking and street biking and gravel biking, and we've got so much history, recreation, arts, culture. There's so many topics that we are just on the precipice of developing a marketing and tourism strategy. And so messaging is an element of that. It's like, how are we going to take all of these different elements and make them relevant and intersectional? And certainly this platform does provide us an additional medium to use that we can then tell a story or stitch things together so that they make a little more contextual sense.
Wow, very cool. I love to hear it. It almost feels like I'm getting in on the ground floor of something really cool.
Yeah.
That you're like weaving these things together, trying to speak to a bigger audience, and just it's awesome when you have something, you have a kernel of something really magical, you just want to share it with the world. And so that seems like what you're doing, and that's so cool to listen to. Kind of changing gears, I'm hopping around a little bit, but just for the audience, would love to know, how exactly do you use Jellypod to accomplish your project? Like, what is the flow that you typically do to make an episode, let's say?
Well, typically I would start with a subject matter that I have done extensive research on. Then I will run it through an AI generator and say, produce or draft we say this technically, a sensational narrative. And then it gives me something that's about 2 pages. And then I usually take that and put that in a Jellypod and turn that sensational narrative into a scripted storytelling format. And then I run the generation. I read through the script. I go and edit the script. Sometimes if I know things are going to be, in need of correcting phonically, or from the standpoint of how things are pronunciation, or if I want to go in and try to add dramatic pauses and things like that. I'm still trying to get through that part, but more or less, it's really a matter about editing the content before you actually make the final production.
Very cool. Okay, so you have this awesome thing that you are an expert in. You use a tool up front to make it into a sensational narrative, and then Jellypod podcastifies that, and then you put on the final tweaks to make it just the way you like it. Very cool. In that flow, were there any unexpected benefits that, maybe in your first run where you were like, oh, I didn't expect that to be in there?
Well, I think that being sort of in the beta part of your launch, it was really a matter of having to go back and correct things that I did not anticipate being incorrect, like the way things are pronounced, or the fact that you guys have that in your platform, that I was able to go in and actually do that. It's fantastic, because it's basically, if I have something, it's called Serenbe, and the thing wants to call it Serenbe, and I can actually go in there and phonetically tell it how to pronounce things, or certain geographies, the local area, et cetera. That was certainly very helpful. As far as like surprises, no, I really didn't know what to expect. I came in with a very blank slate. I mean, this is sort of a new medium for the broader public. I know that podcasting's been around for a number of years, but it's really never been so easily available to the public at large.
Totally. I guess to make this question a little bit harder, maybe a little bit easier, I'm going to flip it on its head then. What would you miss most if Jellypod disappeared today?
I think that I would really regret having to go find something that works as well. Honestly, it's not yet 100% perfect, but it's so much better than other products I've looked at, and just the ease of use. And I was telling some folks recently that I've got probably 6 or 7 more topics that I want to explore that I have not had time to, draft out the research on. But, Jellypod actually makes it very, very easy to put the project together. I mean, my first podcast I did, after I did the post production on it, took about 8 hours. That was because the imagery that I was putting into post-production was not stock. When Boss read it or heard it and said, oh, very interesting, it's not a podcast. Podcasts don't have video, which we know is not really true, because nowadays there's all sorts of video that goes along with narration. But basically, by leaving the post-production editing off the table, I was then able to produce a podcast in probably 30, 40 minutes. I mean, really cut down my production time. So that's how I was able to pump out 15 videos now within roughly about 8 or 9 weeks. I was not doing it full time, just that. I mean, it was just like my spare time. I might work on 1 every day or 2 every day.
Absolutely. It's cool. And I love that you're already pushing it into video and trying to be immersive. Would like to close out. I've got 2 questions. Typically I've got 1 question at this moment, but I'm going to do 2 just because of what you do. So my first question will be, if you had to describe Jellypod to a friend in a single sentence, what would you say?
I would say that Jellypod allows us to expand our public message, or actually our public engagement, by diversifying the different types of mediums that we're allowed to use, whether that's speech medium or narration or video or photography, et cetera. I think one thing that really sticks out to me is how podcasts or Jellypod or AI in general has really modernized the field of work that I'm in. Certainly, I think the podcast technology has the ability to reach a much broader audience. I'm sort of holding back my product because I think there's still room for enhancement. So I'd rather get through the videography and that sort of element to play into the storytelling that goes into the podcast narration that makes it much more immersive. And that's kind of where I am at this point after working on this for I think I've been at this now for about 4 months.
Nice. Well, very cool. And I typically don't ask this, but I'll ask you today. If you could describe your town to broader Georgia and to the broader Southeast in a single sentence, what would you say?
We are a city of great intention. We are putting the preservation of green space and nature at the top of our development pyramid. We focus on mixed-use housing and commercial development. We do not engage in industrial development. We're not looking for warehouse or distribution centers. And we are 25 minutes away from the world's busiest airport in a market of 6.7 million people. And we are trying to be a small bit of paradise in a very urbanized area.
Amazing. Well, there you have it, folks. A bit about Jellypod. And I will link out to your city website in our description here as well. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me. This was a blast.
All right. Thank you, Jason. You guys come visit.
Will do. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.